We're back. And now you're probably wondering why I changed shirts. But it's because the other one was itchy, and this one feels better. No, but seriously, welcome back. It's been even longer than the break in between last videos. And that's just because, I don't know, I got kind of lazy. Also, there wasn't really UFC because of this whole virus thing, so it was just kind of, you know. But today, what I've decided to do is I'm going to start doing fighter profiles, which are like kind of a highlight of any fighter's like career, like their legacy, something that's cool about them, things like that. And every video I'm going to do, you know, a certain fighter. And this video is Micheal Bisping because he's my favorite fighter of all time. And he's really funny, so it'll be an easy one to do. So I hope you guys enjoy it. More are going to come. If you guys have a fighter that you guys like, then just, I don't know, most of you probably know me. Whatever. So, without further ado, I give you the career profile of Micheal Bisping. So I'm going to do 3 categories. I'm going to do his trash talk, his career, and then his legacy. Just to kind of split it into 3 sections. Starting off with his trash talk. One of the things Micheal Bisping, the reason why he's one of my favorite fighters is because of how far, kind of ahead of his time he was. But he had so many perfect one-liners.
I mean, he seems like a nice enough guy, but he has got a face designed for punching, definitely. He could probably do very successful with a range of signature punching bags. Just stick his face on there and you want to punch it.
I mean, he annihilated dudes. I mean, he had opponents beat before he even got in the octagon with him, just how good his trash talk was.
What are you doing? What is that? What are you doing? You trying to intimidate me? It ain't gonna work on me, pal. It ain't gonna work on me. I'm not intimidated. I'm not scared of an old 41-year-old.
And they're very good at press conferences. They get a lot of clicks, and they just get a lot of attention based off of things that they say. But the unfortunate part about Bisping is, you know, he kind of had a decent amount of losses. So he didn't back up every single bit of trash talk that he dealt out. But majority of them he followed through with. And there are some just, I mean, some beautiful moments. I mean, it's like art. It's like poetry.
Don't even give me any money. Shook your hand. You're in an octagon, by the way. It's okay. You'll come too.
I think my favorite instance of Micheal Bisping's trash talk is probably when, his Luke Rockhold fight. The fight where he won the championship. I mean, before the fight, there were.
Stranger to Luke Rockhold, I know what he does, I know how he feels. He tried to take me down, I threw him off me. He was weak as piss, he was like a little boy, he really was.
Obviously, Rockhold is a smug, arrogant so-and-so. I'll save the foul language for another show.
And then, during the fight...
Oh, he got rocked! He hurt him bad! He hurt him bad! And again! Micheal Bisping!
So just moments like that are just priceless. Micheal Bisping started fighting super young. He started fighting in Knockdown Sport Budo, which is basically a precursor to MMA. He's basically been fighting his entire life. He worked multiple jobs in factories and butcheries and just all these other things that, you know, I would never do them at that age. But through Bisping's career, he kind of had mixed results. He was usually always ranked. You know, he would get up and he would win a couple fights and lose one. He'd win a couple more and then lose one. So, you know, he was never able to really reach a #1 contender spot, you know, in the early portion of his career. And it was kind of frustrating because, you know, to see a guy who wins majority of his fights but still isn't able to get to that, you know, #1 contender spot and get a title shot or win the title. Or really be in the talks for a title bout. The guys. But during the later half of his career, Bisping kind of had a resurgence. You know, he went on a pretty decent win streak. But a little bit before that, he had a fight with Vitor Belfort, where I believe it was his left eye. No, I'm sorry, it was his right eye. The retina got detached, so he was basically fighting blind. But his win streak started with fighting CB Dalloway. He got a unanimous decision over him. Then he beat Tialis Leites, who he got a split decision over him. A little bit of a closer fight. But then, after that, he got a big fight. Probably one of the biggest of his career against Anderson Silva, who was recently dethroned a couple years back at the time. So not necessarily a prime Anderson Silva, but still no joke. And honestly, I think that fight is one of the probably the biggest reason that I'm a fan of Bisping. Bisping faced so much adversity in that fight, so much that went on. But I'm gonna get into that in the legacy half or the legacy portion of the video. So moving on, he defeated Anderson Silva, and then after that, he was fourth ranked in the middleweight division. And Luke Rockhold, someone pulled out of one of his title fights, and Michael Bisping had to take a short notice fight. And I mean, and then unfortunately he fought George St. Pierre, who had just come back, arguably the GOAT. Who he just come back from a break at welterweight. He came back, and then Michael Bisping had to fight, of course, figures. He had to fight one of the greatest of all time, and he lost that fight, rear naked choke. But that kind of doesn't taint his legacy anymore. I mean, honestly, after winning the championship, that's all he really needed. That was kind of the pinnacle. That was the peak of his career. That's what he wanted. That's what all the fans wanted. I mean, that is something that not a lot of fighters get to say that they have done. And after a long career, Michael Bisping finally could say that, that's something that he's done, and avenged one of his losses. He also did lose, after he lost to George St. Pierre, he tried to fight, it was something crazy, like a month later, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, against Kelvin Gastelum, and Kelvin Gastelum knocked him out pretty bad, but that doesn't tarnish his legacy anymore, because that fight was the turnaround for that was crazy, and he got hit pretty hard by George, so I don't know, that fight's kind of, on a full training camp, I think Bisping would have got Gastelum, but I don't know, it's close. But moving on to his legacy and what he did for the sport of MMA, and what, important takeaways from his entire career and what he's done. Well, first, like I said before, he kind of paved the way for guys like Conor, who can trash talk and get fights and get popularity based off their trash talk. He was kind of the precursor to all that. And then another thing is, Michael Bisping is a true fighter. I mean, a guy with 50-some fights on his resume. I think a lot of guys should look up to Michael Bisping. He really, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the definition of a fighter. He'll fight anyone, wherever, whenever. I mean, he took a title fight on 2 weeks' notice. Like, no one does that. That's like the biggest fight of your career, and he took it on 2 weeks' notice. So it's kind of a lost art, actually. The guys like Cowboy Cerrone. I mean, you see a few of them, in the UFC and in MMA still. Guys who, they're like, oh, I'll fight whenever, wherever. People say that, but, I mean, they don't truly mean it. Guys like Cerrone. Even Alistair Overeem is very overlooked, in my opinion, but that's another story. The main thing that's important to me is the Anderson Silva fight. I've said this to all my friends and everyone that I talk to Michael Bisping about. That is, like, my favorite fight to watch ever, because Bisping was beating Anderson Silva pretty bad the first few rounds, and then Anderson Silva, I think he connected on a right hook, and Bisping's mouthpiece went out. He might have not hit him, but regardless, Bisping's mouthpiece went out. And, it was towards the end of the round, so Bisping was kind of backing up, and, he looked at Herb Dean and then pointed, and he was like, can I get my mouthpiece? And when he pointed down, he looked back up, and Anderson came with a flying knee and then sat down Bisping and knocked him down. But Silva thought he won because, he knocked down Bisping, and then the round ended, so Herb Dean stepped in. So Anderson Silva thought he'd won, but it wasn't. Bisping was still out. He wasn't out. He didn't go unconscious. Jason Perillo, his boxing coach, talked about how when he came back into the corner, he was cut up everywhere. And he still had 2 rounds to go, too. He still had the 4th and 5th round. I mean, how are you going to keep going after something like that? One of my favorites, I mean, perseverance, a comeback. That fight had everything in it. It had knockdowns. It had a crazy moment. It had an underdog story. But that's kind of why I like Bisping. He's a very important fighter to me because, you know, he's an inspiration to a lot of people. He should be. And, you know, even now, he's left behind a legacy that's incredible. I mean, really lifted the division and brought forward a new era of fighters, a new wave of fighters. He's a really great fighter and really the definition of a fighter. Again, I keep on saying that. So yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm gonna probably do more, you know, as I feel like it. I want to do Stipe Miocic next, so look out for that. I'm probably gonna do that next. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.